everybody. Mestre Sukuri coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. Ohayou gozaimasu. Mestre Vibes, episode number 42. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit about my development as a leader in Capoeira, not only in my Capoeira Zoador group, but also how I developed as a leader as I reflected on how I grew from when I first came to Asia and how I see myself today. So I'm also doing this for YouTube. So from now on, I'm hoping to see if I can release the YouTube video a week or two after I release the early access for all my amazing people here on Patreon. If you're interested in seeing the 41 episodes of my podcast before, you can listen to them. There's no video, but you can listen to them on Mestre Vibes Patreon page, and you can go for as little as $3 a month. And I'm going to be doing a big push this year to try to get people to join for $5 a month. If you join for $5 a month this year, generally it's people I know. When I see you or when I'm traveling or if I have a chance, I will get to you guys this year's Boa Fashion, which is my t-shirt company, 100% Capoeira t-shirt with one of my favorite songs on the back. The song is, I don't have a lot in this world. I don't have anything to sell except the emotion in my heart and the game of Capoeira. God, thank you so much for the capoeira that I can play. It's a very old song. It was recorded on Senzala record, a CD album years ago, and it's one of my favorite songs. I sing it a lot. It means a lot to me. And I have the t-shirt done, and I'll have the pictures up as soon as I get things done here. So you'll be able to see it here on the side with me and when I put this up. So post-editing. When you support me through Patreon, you support everything I do outside of teaching capoeira. So the 16 classes I teach, plus all the community events, the support that you give me to do artistic projects. We got a lot of things coming up this year. So hit that like button, of course. I'm not really looking at YouTube so much as a YouTuber, but more something to give everybody access to what I do, thanks to my Patreon community. So check out Patreon. Here's the QR code. Hit it up. Get in there. Come support and be a part of everything I do. Okay, let's jump into today's topic. Yesterday, I had a really good conversation with a friend of mine, and we talked a lot about, he's a contramestre vaquero. I'm using his name because he's just somebody who I really have a lot of respect for and I talk to a lot. And also contramestre cobrinha in Thailand. So when I first came to Japan, it was a very interesting situation. There was several groups, and I've told this story and I talk about it in my first book, The Path of Capoeira. When I first came here, there were a lot of people doing capoeira, but for someone who comes from a capoeira background, it was a little strange because it looked very break dance style. It looked more like movement without understanding of movement, or a lot of the people didn't have a lot of level. But as we say in the Valley of the Blind, the man with one eye is king. And I met a lot of people who had less than 6 months of capoeira training here, running groups and getting special, special connection and whatnot to different groups in Brazil or around the world, so they could be qualified or they could be certified or they could be supported capoeira teachers. And that's something that's really important, especially in Japan. You need to have some kind of, some kind of affirmation, some kind of support or accreditation. And it's something that's very important in Asia, East Asian culture, especially in Asian culture, but also really important here in Japan. And when I first came, I guess the best way to start this is to talk about kind of in a chronological order how it happened. So I got here on a Friday night. On a Monday night, I went to my first capoeira capoeira class to visit. I was really excited. I really wanted to be a part of the capoeira community. But as the night progressed and I was watching the class, I really realized that it's not really what I was looking for, something that was very different. And I didn't understand what that meant at the time. Also, I was very excited to be in Japan. I spoke no Japanese. So I was just getting my footing, my grounding. Then over the next year and a half, I had really did a lot. For example, a lot of people don't know the famous Shibuya crossing. It used to be closed and the cars wouldn't go through there on Sundays. And I actually started the first capoeira rodas in the streets of Shibuya. That was my roda. So if anyone says it was them, it wasn't, it was me. And I was also the first person to start outside roda, for example. Up until then, the Japanese, because the way Japan is, you don't really have public things like that. And I was the first one to start the Yoyogi Park or Yoyogi Koen, one of the big parks, and I would do a capoeira roda there every weekend. And it was something that I did. At that time, I was teaching in different locations, rental studios. I was teaching for different dance schools, whatnot. And I would hold my monthly or my weekly Sunday roda there. I remember like during the winter how cold it would get, and I was still young, so I felt really great. And I would take off my shirt playing capoeira on a Sunday, and you could see the steam coming off and snow on the floor. So it used to be really crazy and really exciting. And I want to thank all the students that were there at the time and all the people who supported. And it was a really international feeling. A lot of the Brazilians who lived in like the southern area of Tokyo, especially, would come up from the Yokohama area, and they would come up and join in the roda, and it was just really dynamic, really fantastic, a lot of fun. Now, I'm not saying that I was a really, really super ready to go capoeira teacher at the time, but like I said, it was so new here, capoeira, and the quality was so different from what I was used to that when I first came, my level was incredibly high. I couldn't have imagined, let's say, if somebody like a full trained master came, or professora or formada came to Japan at that time, how it would have impacted capoeira at the time. So my group, Capoeira Zoador, like just grew. We had like the possibility of Capoeira Zoador in I want to say Nagano. We had a capoeira person teaching in Sapporo, and I went up there for one batizado and a couple of events. We had Capoeira Zoador in Kanazawa, and today that person has their own successful group, and I'm really happy for them, and I hope the best for everybody. And we even had it in Thailand, and it was really growing. And at the time, I realized that I wasn't mentally or psychologically prepared, or I didn't have the skills. I had education, but I didn't have the skills of leadership. I didn't understand what needed to be done to be successful in Japan or in a first world country. And this is something that I think a lot of people have a difficulty with. For example, I see the same thing happening in the salsa. As I've grown here, I've been also part with a lot of friends who teach salsa. Generally, they're Cuban or Colombian, and they come to Japan and they teach salsa. And it's very difficult to grow something unless you understand leadership, organization, how to run it as a business. And that's something that took me a long time to understand. Fortunately, when I was able to do my second master's here at Waseda University, I was able to take a lot of business courses that helped me to really understand how I'm doing things and really understand how I needed to organize myself to be a professional person. And today I consider myself a very professional capoeira teacher. And I'll get into what is a professional capoeira teacher in a moment. So I had all these different groups growing and a lot of these different things, but at the time I still didn't understand the environment, the Japanese way of thinking, the Japanese society, how things did, and it took me many years to really understand that. And now that I've been here for 25 years, I know exactly how I want to do things and how I need to do things so that I can be successful for myself as a professional capoeira teacher. When I first came here, we had, like I said, all these different groups, and literally it all came down like in a week or two. I felt like, I can't remember because it was a long time ago, but everybody started doing their own thing. They said that they wanted to leave my group and all these different, and I was like, and at the time, like everybody would feel, I felt betrayed. I felt like they were disloyal. But today I realized that happens for one of two reasons. One, the person does not have the integrity to do things in a good way or in a proper way, in a right. Like one of the biggest things you'll see in Asia, and I've talked about this a lot, is that non-Brazilians tend to get their belts, their cordões and capoeira a lot faster, almost like clockwork every year. That when their group affiliate comes here, or their master or whatever, they'll get their next cordon. It's just like clockwork. Pay for the masters to come, give them money. And I know this happens all over the world, but it's still something I think is very normal here. And although I don't have anything to talk about, these are things that I hear from people telling me. Like when I come across people say, hey, how's it going? I say, oh yeah, I'm this belt. And I go, wow, you've just got a belt every year, every cordon, every year? Yes. And I'm like, wow, okay. And they're oblivious that that's not really how it works in capoeira. It takes time, it takes dedication, there's level. So it becomes I would say in Asia, the belts, the cordons, in my opinion, are more markers of time and loyalty or fidelidade, right? Being dedicated to your group and paying your dues. And I mean paying your dues not in capoeira, but in actually money. So that's a big thing. And I know people might say, oh, that's messed up, whatever, you need to support. That's just my opinion and how it works. So I felt I did not have the leadership skills. So at one point I was like, fine, done with everything. These people don't know what they're doing. They have no integrity. That's one side. But now I'm going to tell you guys how it was for me. Okay? How I see it. I see it now as it was 100% my responsibility, 100% my fault. I take full accountability for the lack of leadership, vision, and understanding that I didn't have in the early 2000s. Now we're in 2024, but in 2001, 2002, 2003, I really lacked the ability to lead. Okay, my leadership was based on the way I saw things in the capoeira world before I came to Asia. And if you're anyone from the 1990s or even before that, even people talk about it now, how lack of professional leadership is actually something we really need to think about in the capoeira world, so that we can raise capoeira to a higher prestige, to a higher level, to a higher way of doing things. And I talk about that a lot in my first book, The Path of Capoeira. I feel that now I've grown a lot and I really understand what it takes to be a leader. And I've taken, entrepreneurial theory, I've taken leadership, I've taken cross-cultural communications, negotiation, all marketing, business, all these classes I've taken in the MBA courses at the MBA level at Waseda. So my brain thinks completely different, and it's been rewired so that I understand how I want to do things. So the main thing that I do now is that I understand what leadership is. Half of it is you have to have a vision as an entrepreneur. What do you want to do with your group? What do you want to do with your capoeira? Is your goal from the first day to become a mestre or a mestra? If that's the goal, then how are you going to get to that goal? If your goal is to be a capoeira teacher, what does it mean to be a teacher? What does it mean to be a leader? What does it mean to organize? What does it mean to provide? What does it mean to be part of something where you contribute? But if you're a part of a group, what do you get from that group in return? And I talk a lot about the fallacy. Like a lot of times people ask me, what do you think of the big capoeira groups or anything? Even mine, I do not charge any membership fees for my capoeira group. That is my choice. I believe each teacher needs to make their own money, and it's hard enough and challenging in capoeira. I invest in getting all the material that my group needs. For example, I have 50 vergas, 50 cabasas. I'm ready to have berimbau's ready. I invested, it's stock. I invested in ordering calças. If my students or the people under my group want something, I get them at the best possible cost. Now, what does that mean? People say, well, you're doing all this for them for free. You're doing this. Actually, I'm not, because I also, as a business person, understand that there's value. The marketing of having people teaching in other states, other countries, other places is there. But for me, as Mestre Sukuri doing what I do, the value is very different. I know I give a lot more than I get, but that's because I'm able to do that in my life right now at the point that I am. I am successful for who I am and for what my goals are in life. I don't define successful as being a billionaire. I don't define successful as having 10,000 people under my group. My goal in capoeira, I always tell people, my goal isn't to be the biggest group, the best group, because there's no way to quantify that. My goal is always to be the coolest group. And for me, that's an inspirational and artistic goal. Not only do I want to bring out the coolest parts of my students and my group and the people around me, but I want to share that with the people around us. So doing what I do is also to inspire, to educate, to introduce culture, to do so many things in my point in my life here in Tokyo, Japan. A lot of people say like, oh, and they talk in so many broad, like conversations like, oh, capoeira should do this. And it's like they're encompassing the world when that's actually not pragmatic or realistic. You have to think about what you're able to do and where you want to go so that you can reach not only financial success, but psychological success and mental health success. I know it sounds very broad, but I talk a lot about this stuff in other podcasts. Today, I'm just going to talk about this little situation because I want to invite people to become part of our community and catch up with what we're doing. Most of these things I'm talking about today, I break down in podcasts one by one in other podcasts in the previous 41 podcasts. So today being episode 42, you can access all this stuff. Either some of them are on YouTube or you can go back and become a member for, like I said, at Patreon and have access to everything I do. Today, if I had to reflect and say, what do I do? What do I bring today as a master of capoeira is I bring mentorship. And this mentorship is coming not from like someone who is still running around, struggling, doing all these things. My academia is very stable. For me, it is very successful. What do I mean by that? I'm planning for my retirement, and it all's coming from capoeira, and it's there. I'm not a millionaire. I don't want to buy a new car every day. I don't need expensive watches. I don't need to travel to exotic locations to do all stuff. But, for example, I can choose to travel by myself, enjoy, take care of my family, afford the ability for my kids to go to college, and planning for my retirement and being very mentally happy. Every day I wake up next to an amazing wife and my mental situation is always good. After her first smile, I get up, I get my coffee. I like my routine. This year, I will be traveling a lot. I really feel. And if you guys are just tuning in now, I got the Insta360 Go 3, which is not actually a 360-degree camera, but like a action camera, so you guys can see that. It looks like a GoPro, but a little bit better for something that I want to do. And I will be doing a lot of videos. My dream projects of traveling and sharing capoeira and sharing my knowledge of capoeira, I will be able to accomplish this year. Okay? This year is 100% capoeira and a lot of love and a lot of passion for a lot of things I'm going to do. In all of these things that I'm talking about today, when we get to the point of what is leadership, what are the difference today? Today, I felt that in the early 2000s when I was doing, I put all the responsibility on people who didn't know what to do. So that's what causes a lot of the conflict. Some people were just maybe not on the same thinking way of I do, what I considered integrity they didn't do, they didn't have, and they did it a different way. Everything comes out in the wash. I wish everybody the best. This is how I do things. Today, I can do things how I want to. And I have a great community around me doing those things. Today, leadership for me has a lot to do with mentorship, really understanding how to help people not only grow, to reflect, to envision, but to also keep in perspective for people who are doing capoeira teaching. I talk to I would say I mentor about 5 different people right now. And that's not people in my academia. These are the people that I talk to on a regular basis, that I share to the best of my ability, my experience, how I do things, and more than anything, to be careful of the pitfalls, to be careful of the things that could backfire for them in the long term or in the short term. A lot of people want to do things to be accepted and to be, to not be conflictual. But I can't think of any situation where you're a leader where conflict doesn't come in. What helps you survive the storm is the strength of character and integrity that you have. And this is something that I feel that I bring a lot now because I don't have to do it any other way. And this is a process of 35 years of me reflecting in my own capoeira identity, in my own capoeira philosophy and spirituality. Guys, I'm going to cut it off here because this is already like 22 minutes, 23 minutes. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, if you want to have access to everything I do and directly support what I do, go to the Patreon page, Mestre Vibes. You can join for as little as $3. I'm doing a big push. If you join for $5 a month, the price of a Starbucks cup of coffee, then you can not only have access to everything I do, but I will make sure to get to you this year a t-shirt, special one, so that everyone can have the matching t-shirts. And I want to see you guys wearing them around the world and posting. Boa fashion. I'll have the t-shirt. You'll be able to see it probably in this video because I just have to do a couple of mock-ups, but they're going to be here. Guys, thank you so much. Episode 42, Mestre Vibes, Mestre Sukuri, Patreon. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're here on YouTube, I don't know, maybe it'll work. Subscribe. Tell me what you think. Put stuff in the comments. Guys, have a great day. Lots of love, lots of peace, and lots of capoeira.